everybody reporting to training camp this Wednesday. Things are about to get interesting in Green Bay. There's an unexpected player that's about ready to steal headlines. I'm talking about Anthony Belton, not for obvious reasons, for the fact that Brian Gutekunst went out and spent a second round draft pick in this year's draft to go and get this guy, and not for obvious reasons that this dude is very talented, hence why Brian Gutekunst went and got him in the second round. Of course, we all know he was the 54th pick for the Green Bay Packers out of NC State. This guy has lots of talent. He's a big body, a big frame. But over the last 3 seasons, Belton has not given up more than 3 sacks in any of those years, according to PFF. And that was accounting for 400 plus pass blocking scenarios for this guy. So we all know that Elton Jenkins and the Green Bay Packers, there's a lot that could shift and change on this offensive line, mainly due because of the holdout from Elton Jenkins, because he was asked, because the Packers acquired, Banks and gave him $77 million. All of a sudden, everybody's looking at their contract saying, hey, listen, I've put up better numbers and better performances than Banks. Now, all of a sudden, this guy's getting paid. I want to get paid more. So Jenkins been asked to move from left guard to center. And because centers aren't paid as high in this league, Jenkins is holding out for more money. Now, all of a sudden, there's this mysterious injury that has formed. And if the injury is manufactured to keep Jenkins from losing any money as a result of a continued holdout, that could mean one of two things. It could mean either that the Green Bay Packers and Elton Jenkins are closing in on a deal. But if not, that could mean that they're considering trading him because they don't want to pay Elton Jenkins a ton of money with a guy that's entering into his 30s. I don't think it's that scenario. I think it's going to be one of the two. But if they decide to trade him and move on from him, things are going to get incredibly interesting. I think they're going to be interesting regardless, and we're going to talk about that here in a moment. But what would that mean? What would that look like if the Green Bay Packers trade away Elton Jenkins? Who would be the next man up? I think for obvious reasons, Sean Ryan would be the most likely scenario guy to shift to center. But then you're going to have Jordan Morgan play all of a sudden right guard, which he, of course, auditioned for that role last year before all these injuries compiled all that stuff. But this is going to get incredibly interesting if the Green Bay Packers do trade away Elton Jenkins, which leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts there. I don't think that scenario is going to happen. I'm going to give you my take. I'm going to let you know what I think is happening in Green Bay. I think the Green Bay Packers going out and getting a guy like Anthony Belton, who's a big frame. Okay, you're looking at a guy that's 6'6", 336 pounds. He's got a good wingspan. He's relatively quick, so he's got good arm length with a thick, wide-bodied build. Heavy hands, jarring power, flashes of high-end bursts. You've got a guy that can bang down, feed, and cave in hip and ribs in that target on double teams. He excels against bigger power rushers with size, length, and strength. There's a whole lot of good things about Anthony Belton to like. And for whatever reason, the Green Bay Packers haven't been absolutely in love with Rasheed Walker. Rasheed Walker was one of those guys that I was like, man, I really like Rasheed Walker. I think this is a guy that can certainly flip the bill. I really liked this pick. I really liked everything about Rasheed Walker, but he's coming up on a contract deal, on a contract year, and the Green Bay Packers are going to be forced with all of a sudden having to pony up a ton of money to keep a guy like Rasheed Walker, or well, they drafted a guy in Anthony Belton that they're not going to have to give up a lot of capital to. And then you look at Sean Ryan, who's coming up on a contract year as well. And the Green Bay Packers are going to be forced with probably letting this dude walk. Even though, he's a reliable guy for the Packers, he had an overall PFF score of a 62. And that was 67th among 136 guards out there in the league. And his pass blocking grade was near 70. Okay, so he excelled at that, not so much on the run blocking grade there. But the biggest reason the Packers would probably let Sean Ryan walk away in free agency is due to the financial implications that they gave Aaron Banks $77 million. Okay, so Zach Tom, they're trying to restructure a deal with him. I think they're going to get that done. That's, of course, number one priority for Brian Gutekunst and the Green Bay Packer organization. But now you're left with, all of a sudden, Elton Jenkins, a very proven guard in this league who could easily shift to center and all of a sudden instantly become one of the better centers in the league. But with that is going to come a cost, and they're going to have to restructure a deal there. I think the Green Bay Packer organization is number one trying to lock up, and they've got the capital for that. They got the cap space for that to go and restructure a deal with Zach Tom, get him, under contract for a lot of years to come. And then Elton Jenkins, I think they can restructure something there because you're going to have Anthony Belton, a guy that is, of course, one of those dudes that could be absolutely worth the pay when you look at, you're looking at his RAS coming out of college. And this dude, he scored a 8.07 out of a possible 10, which ranked 270 out of 1395 offensive tackles from 1987 to 2025. Okay, so I can see the Green Bay Packers putting and relying Anthony Belton, auditioning him, getting some reps this year, letting Rasheed Walker walk, which, if given the opportunity and you had the opportunity to sign Zach Tom and Elton Jenkins, I certainly would go that route as opposed to Rasheed Walker and Sean Ryan. Okay, so with that, you're going to have Jordan Morgan probably next year sliding over, taking Sean Ryan's place at right guard, who scored a 9.25 out of a possible 10. We all know that Brian Gutekunst sees a big upside in this dude out of Arizona, hence why they picked him in the first round overall. So you're going to see a lot of things getting quite interesting in Green Bay. And I think Anthony Belton is going to be one of those guys that all eyes are on, knowing that he's going to be the possible future and the potential future and the probable future at left tackle for Jordan Love in the Green Bay Packer offensive line. And then you've got Banks there sitting making 77 million at left guard, and then you're going to have Elton Jenkins. Hopefully the Green Bay Packers can get this dude restructured at center, and then you're going to have Jordan Morgan, who you're not paying a ton of capital to either. You're letting Sean Ryan walk, and then you've got Zach Tom solidified for a handful of years because you're able to work out something there. Things are going to get quite interesting. I think, all eyes, I think, are going to be on this offensive line. I want you guys to leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts there. Of course, there's a lot of positions to watch in training camp. There's going to be a lot of positions vying for playing time. You look at the linebacker position, you look defensively, there's at cornerback, there's going to be some interesting things happening all across the board positionally for the Green Bay Packers. But I think all eyes are going to be on Anthony Belton and this Green Bay Packer offense, not for this year, but looking to the future. And is Anthony Belton going to show a skill set that we can throw him in there throughout the year, get him some reps, and be ready to start next year? Leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts. And as always, go Pack Go.